It's hard to find a job. I have two stepdaughters, both of which are teenagers, and both are discovering that growing up isn't cheap. My oldest went looking for a job recently, something on the weekends, part-time, and it wasn't easy finding one. Maybe you've had that experience lately. But I have good news. Jesus is hiring. Hello world, my name is David Dorn, and this is Preposterous, which is not your typical Bible study. The Bible tells us that Jesus is looking for people to work. There are no years of experience necessary. You don't have to be skilled in Microsoft Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. You don't have to know someone who knows someone to get the job. All the job requires is compassion for people and a love for God. Interested? Matthew 9:35-38 says, Jesus traveled among all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, announcing the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and every sickness. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were troubled and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The size of the harvest is bigger than you can imagine, but there are few workers. Therefore, plead with the Lord of the harvest to send out workers for his harvest." Jesus calls us to plead with God the Father to send more workers, to hire more people. There's a major job shortage. Lots of positions need to be filled. Are you applying? Now, what is going on in this verse? Well, Jesus traveled a lot. There was such a need for him everywhere. There still is a need for him everywhere. And when Jesus came to your city, he taught about the Old Testament to people. He announced the good news that God is breaking into our world now. He healed those who came to him, and he had compassion on those who were troubled. God's compassion for people is what creates jobs, our jobs. You see, there is so much need for Jesus in your school, at your work, in your home, in your neighborhood. Jesus is looking for followers to go to work for him in those places. The world needs Jesus, and Jesus sends you. Now, that may not sound like the greatest trade-off, but it's not you. It's Jesus in you. Jesus trained his disciples, taught them, questioned them, helped them understand their role. After Jesus ascended into heaven, he sent the Holy Spirit, the person of God that lives in people, to give them the comfort, peace, and wisdom they needed to be Jesus to the world. Jesus has trained you too. If you've watched this study or read the Gospels, you've been taught by Jesus. And you have the Holy Spirit with you as well. You're ready for the work ahead, to go have compassion on people, to teach them about God, and to announce to them that God has broken into our space and time. His name was Jesus, and he died to set us free from the effects of sin. You are ready. Now, I have to tell you this job isn't without consequences. In Matthew 10, Jesus gives instructions for how to carry out this job. He says that we will be bullied and laughed at. Some will even be abused and beaten for talking about Jesus. Did you know, on average, 160,000 Christians are murdered around the world every year because of their outspoken faith? A friend of mine has lost friends and family, even his own house, due to their faith in God. His name is Gideon, and I want you to hear some of his story.
I come from Nigeria, especially the northern part, where there's a lot of things going on there between Christians and Muslims. I was just in the house and I received a phone call that Muslims were going to attack the city that day. I left and went to go to the church to be sure that things were okay. I could not get to the church. I got stuck in the midst of Muslims who were carrying all kinds of weapons to kill anyone that was a Christian. But God saved me. But that day, to cut the long story short, our church was burnt to the ground. My house was burnt. And the interesting thing is that my parents were in that house. My father and my mother were in that house, but the mighty deliverance of God somehow, which is a miracle that we cannot explain up to today, that my parents got out of it because the Muslims set fire on the house and they were standing there. We lost everything. Cars, we had 2 cars, we had, books, and everything in the house was just touched to ashes. Now, what does it say to me, being obedient to God and facing all these challenges? What has it done to me? Well, you may ask, it has not been easy. It has been a very difficult thing. But to some extent, it has solidified my calling as a child of God who has chosen to follow God and obey Him.
But Jesus says in Matthew 10, don't be afraid of those who kill the body but can't kill the soul. And He goes on to say, everyone who acknowledges me before people, I also will acknowledge before my Father who is in heaven. But everyone who denies me before people, I also will deny before my Father who is in heaven. I first decided to do online Christian videos because others weren't. In a society that overwhelmingly claims to be Christian, there were so few of us who were actually putting up Christian content online. The internet is the greatest mission field we've ever seen. Billions of people are at your fingertips, and very few of them are being engaged for Christ. There's a saying online, the internet is where Christianity comes and dies. And it's because the non-Christian voice is so much louder in this space. So I took seriously this call by Jesus for workers to go out and work for Him. People are ready for Jesus. Are we ready to go out to them and give them Jesus? Now, Jesus isn't just hiring for preachers and teachers, although from that last set of verses, it's evident that we should all be willing to talk about Him. Jesus is looking for people who will have compassion for other people, who will be Jesus for the lost, the hurting, the sick, and the needy in whichever way they need. When I was a teenager, I helped out with the Special Olympics for a few years. And one year I got assigned to help this one guy, and he had a mental and physical disability. He didn't like meeting new people, and I'm sitting there thinking, how is this going to work? I'm supposed to lead this guy around all day, but he won't talk to me, much less stay with me. What am I going to do? But I had a job to do, and I felt called to do it. I found out this guy liked Power Rangers, so I started talking to him about Power Rangers. I had some experience with being a ranger. Go, go, Power Rangers! And then we started acting like Power Rangers all day. And by that I mean we karate chopped and karate kicked imaginary bad guys everywhere we went. When we would go to an event, which he would be shy about, I'd get him pumped up by asking him, what would the Power Rangers do? And then when they called on your mark, get set, go, he took off like a Power Ranger. He even came in 3rd place. Could it be that acting like a Power Ranger with a mentally handicapped man for a day was exactly what Jesus needed me to be for Him? Maybe. But I do know this, that was one of the funnest days I've ever had. Now I want you to brainstorm with me. What is your context? Are you in school? Do you have a job? Are you involved in a community of people? Whatever your context is, in what ways could you have compassion on those people? Telling them about Jesus and about what He came to do, or just being Jesus for them. Leave your possible suggestions in a comment or a video response, and then go out and do one of them. Remember, Jesus is hiring, and you've got the job if you want. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed Preposterous, make sure you like this video and share it on Facebook with your friends. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to us here on YouTube, and you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. As always, if you have any questions for me, you can tweet me at @IamPreposterous. And if you're a small group leader and would like to use Preposterous for your small group, you can sign up on our website at preposterousproject.com. God bless.